participation. Individuals who wish to access the meeting online can go to the town clerk's web portal, and at the top of the page they will see a Zoom link which will bring them into the meeting. The Zoom link and online participation is being moderated by Peter of CTV. And if you have an interest in one of the agenda items, you can bring it to his attention. And our practice is to advance agenda items for participants who are here in person or who are online in order to avoid too much consumption of personal time. At this meeting, we have Vicky Kahn, Landmarks Board members Vicky Kahn, Tim Ganettis, Susan Clark, Jeff Gibbons, Martha Green, Bill Hine, Stephanie Davis, Samantha Malone, and Larry Jones. And am I missing? Oh, and myself, Ed Wisnowski. And I think I've covered the basics for the holding of the meeting. The first element on the agenda is the minutes, which were produced, and we're grateful for Christine for rendering last month's meeting in last month's complicated meeting in such a good fashion. And Stephanie, you saw to their circulation?
Yes, the minutes were circulated. I did not receive any comments on this particular set of minutes.
Okay, with that, is there any comments from anyone here? Will I move their adoption? Seconded by Martha. All in favor, say aye.
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 The minutes are approved. With that, we can proceed to the first category of business, which are demolition permit applications. And we have an interested party for 228 Heddapon Road, Watermill. Would you provide your ID and
Sure.
describe what you have on the prospect of demolishing this house?
Good evening, Mr. Wisnowski and the board. Jason Bremba from Jason Thomas Architect. I'm here seeking demolition for 228 Heddapon Road. My best research has shown that I'm probably in around 1920. I figured the house, the type of construction, the nails that were used, and the type of framing within the house. And I feel like it came from a case of probably a Sears set of plans or similar. When I researched available plans in the time period, it puts me between 1918 and like 1922 possibly. The later I get, those 4 square typical homes seem to go away. So in that regard, it is a true 4 square in that fashion. But in my best belief, I would not say according to the National Registry by any means it's a work of a master, higher artistic value, represents any significant distinguishable entity. The other criteria that it mentions is would be anybody of significance that has lived there. I have not found in my research that anyone has, but you may find otherwise. Same goes for any associated events of any particular nature that would have any significance, whether it be religious or a birthplace of someone in that regard. I look back at the old maps. The latest C of O is 1957, but it clearly points that it was built before then. I completely agree with that. In my research and the maps that I found through historical aerials and the GIS system, it obviously gets pretty blurry back to 1930, but I believe it started with that original 4 square, and somewhere in the early 60s, they probably added the rear addition to the back, because the foundation in the basement, it's a little confusing to me, because normally the type of foundation would be a bit different. It seems like it was an attempted poured foundation. And the rear addition is done with CMU block, which would definitely tip off, a more modern addition. That garage that's shown, that flat roof garage, it's there. It was originally not there around like 1920 time, it seems. It disappears, and then it appears to be built again in the maps, unless it's just a quality issue in the overhead views. But I feel that garage was built around 1960, and around a similar time that addition was done as well, or in maybe late 50s.
Thought I saw that on the 30 and the 38 aerial, but I'm not. It's
Yeah, the 30, it shows up as a very small, and then the same thing. I start seeing it in the 1960s.
they're not really
1960
clear,
qualities.
but there are pictures in the report that I had the 30 and the 38.
Yeah, the 54, which you guys probably have already, the 54 historical aerials, it doesn't seem to show up on the 54. So that's this project in question, and then you'll see in 60. Yeah, 60. See, it's pretty obvious. It pops up, kind of right there. So that's the garage starting to show itself.
Yep.
So like I said, the way I looked into the framing, the type of nails we used, and the way the house was framed, and kind of the drawings all kind of put it around 1920. And so for my client per se, we had an engineer's report, which they have a very specific budget. It's not your typical client that I normally have. I'm not saying that to say we don't do regular projects, but they're only going to build a 3,500 square foot house. They're not looking to do a 8,000 square foot house with a finished basement. They're not even finishing the basement. It just, the finances aren't there to do it. So in then analyzing, trying to bring this house to code, the current codes, elevate it, it's actually, totally non-conforming. Well, a large portion, as you know from the survey, is over the front yard setback. So we contemplate lifting it up and moving it back. It's just getting so cost prohibitive with building costs here in the Hamptons. I would say since COVID, it's really gone through the roof. It just made it not really doable to do it. So the idea would be potentially to save some of the interior doors, try to work them into the house in some fashion. I would say that's probably the best characteristic remaining on the interiors. The windows are original in the front existing part of the building, old, the chain type windows, double hung units. Everything in that back addition I talked about it's more current, including, I think there's an Anderson slider in the rear. But it's just, what's required to do to get that to the condition needs to be done with the framing, the roof framing, and the base. It's not really viable. And I'm not quick to demolish homes, so I'm sensitive to that. My family goes back to the 1640s, so I take this, very seriously what we do.
We appreciate, Vicki and I made a site visit, of course, that you set up. We appreciated that. I guess it is listed in our historic resources survey. It was Watermill 69.
Yes.
And it was, they called it a prairie style 4-square.
Yes.
You may have seen that. I don't know if you checked that. But every time we lose something that's been listed, it's just, it's one less, resource. And we found a house that was really well maintained. It's in good condition. However, it's not, that property was large and spacious, and obviously your clients want something probably to more accommodate a lifestyle of today. But I guess because it is so well maintained, if there was some way, and this is just me personally, versus, like a board decision, to adaptively reuse that house somehow in your design. And I realize it may not exactly fit the style, but there's some way to use it. From what your engineer's report said, and we appreciated that, it said, I think they were just talking about undersized joists and, ceiling joists and beams. and, the strapping for hurricanes, but not pointing out, really a lot, of flaws. However, we didn't find it to be architecturally significant, even though it's in our, so, Vicki and
I
I
happen
were,
to be a big fan of four square houses.
yeah.
And
So-
I live in one actually, but I really found very little that was, that could convince me that to ask you to go to extraordinary lengths and for client to expend extraordinary amounts of money to try and preserve a house that has been rebuilt and added on so many times that absent the interior, the doors, I agree with you.
I don't disagree
Walk
with you.
through the,
Yeah.
the house, I said to Susan, it would be nice if we could keep those doors, because if anybody's renovating a house of that era, it's hard to find them. And, but, you have contemporary baseboard heating. I mean, there's really nothing there that is architecturally significant on the interior. Not all of the floors are the original floors. Some are, most aren't.
Yes.
So, I would like, as a board member, I'd love to preserve, but I
Yeah.
can't really find anything that would compel me to ask my fellow members to preserve this particular structure.
And I
That's
guess
my
I'm
opinion.
looking more, even, it's more from a sustainable point. So we have, and I agree, but it's just, we have a house that's in good condition, and eventually it will end up in a dumpster,
Understood. Yeah, and
unless
we,
are able to get the doors out.
to my point
and
earlier, that's not my first decision
Yeah.
when we design homes or looking to do new projects. It's just the cost.
And
to
I
elevate
did,
it, to move it, to do a new foundation is
look
really-
at the names. Mishnah, of course, I went back from there. They're from down from Eastport. I probably related to the fellow who did a few of your historical reports down there. But the family name that came up, and it was on a 1997 survey, was Stanislav Wisniewski.
Wisniewski.
Okay, thank you, Ed. And he and his wife, Josephine, lived there by 1930. So prior to that, it appeared to be part of the Benedict family's property, and they're the ones that had the water mill, the house moving businesses, ice, you name it, a long list. And they had so many employees at that time. The influx of Polish people in the late 80s and the early 90s, they employed large volumes of people, and they had tenant housing set up in that area. In fact, in the Watermill Community, Celebrating Community book, Marlene Harrisine's book, she refers to it as Polish towns.
That's what
Because
it's
there was-
called in the newspapers.
Pardon?
It's Polish Town.
Yeah.
for
So
that
there were
street.
so many people living. And then after, because the Benedicts rented houses, they rented rooms, they rented houses, then they sold houses. And since a number of people were comfortable living in that area, they either bought houses. The Benedicts it wasn't on the and I was mistaken when I had talked to your assistant. I thought I had seen it on the 1902 map, but Fred was a little bit further south. But it wasn't on the 1902 or the 1916. But by 1916, Walter Benedict owned that property. So he may have built it and sold it to this family, or they built it.
I
It's
saw the
hard
same thing
because
with
we
the map.
couldn't
I
quite
thought
get.
at first when you mentioned that to my associate, and we
Um,
checked. I completely agree about the 1916. and earlier.
they did at least a 9-lot subdivision around 1930, which would be separating this house out. And in the meantime, his daughter married Stanley Mishna from Eastport, and they built the house at 210, which would be directly to the south, around 1920. And then her sister Jenny built the house we did at 188 Head of the Pond. It was the little house, big house. We had that as a construction several years back. But so for that family, I found them. They were on 7 Pounds Road by 1930, and he was a farmer. They resided there to their deaths. He died in 48, she died in 59. But prior to that, the Missioners sold their house around 1939 and apparently moved into her parents' home. And Stanley's claim to fame, he was an electrician and they owned the Watermill Liquor Store. So, I mean, that's, and Catherine worked there, was in her obituary. And I think around 1930, their house was valued at $4,000, 1940, $3,500, and they were also shown there in 1950. He also was an electrician. He worked for the Long Island Light Company. Find a Grave had his entire obituary. Hers was on the same page as my mother's. It was like the shocking thing that when you are looking for somebody, my mother wasn't local, but my dad was, and she was buried here. So I was like, I saw my mother's first, and then I saw Catherine's, but her obituary was in there. But based on all those, that doesn't make them historically significant people. They may have been hardworking, but that doesn't raise a 4-square house with vital siding
Yes.
to another level.
Also,
So-
this neighborhood is being transformed.
It is.
And right next door is, on the corner, is brand new, very large house replacing
Yeah.
a smaller traditional style
Yeah.
house just within the past year. And that's likely to be,
Yeah.
this is a changing neighborhood.
And the garage is quaint, with a lot of vines, but that doesn't raise it to architecturally significant either. No, I understand. When I say I personally, that's my. But then as a board member, I understand that.
But you feel that there's no reason to object?
Well, no, I mean, if you look at, in the report, which you'll get a copy of it, we list, the criteria for landmarking, historic personages, characteristics of an architectural type, designer, location, and right now, you used to be able to see it from Monroe, but now it's so screened that most people don't know, intentionally probably don't know that it's there. And that's really tricky, the little short fencing with the faux.
Yeah, I thought when we first started the project, and the client did as well when they purchased it, that hedgerow was their property line. So when we went to get the new fence installed, we were pretty surprised how far back it was from the road.
So
Yeah.
that's, we appreciated the engineer's report, so I guess recommendations, skipping the adaptive reuse of the house would be the doors. And I'm not sure, the windows appeared to be probably from the 20s too, the ones that they were
Agreed, yeah,
two
in the
over
front
one.
original portion, yes. Yeah.
And I don't know if any of those would be salvageable. And the other thing would be, is anything usable, if it could be like that, I would include a link to the Habitat for Humanity.
We typically, projects we work with, we open it up to them. There's other companies doing similar things.
So I think they
Let them
come
do
in
it.
and get,
Yep.
but we're advisory and we would just make those suggestions, so.
So are there other comments? And we've all had Susan's report to read and know about it, familiar with it. So there's no objection to the application for demolition, so. Okay. So we'll send a report back to the building department that we have no objection with possibly the tweaks that Susan suggested about certain recovery of certain material that
Yeah.
might be there. So.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time and your diligence, really.
Thank
honestly.
you, I
did a really
appreciate
nice
you
job.
doing a lot of research
Yeah.
ahead of
Yeah,
time.
thank you.
Should have sent it my
Thanks.
way.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for coming in. Okay. Okay, so that takes care of 228. You're here for
2422 Montauk Highway.
2422, okay, that's a certificate of appropriateness application for a glass door.
Yeah, do I need to go up there or?
Yes, why don't you
Okay.
just disclose who you are and what you're interested in?
Hi, good evening. I'm Danny. I'd like to add a door to a commercial space located at 2422 Montauk Highway. I was working with Anthony in the planning department since last year, and then when I submitted my application this year, I was told that it's designated as a landmark area. So there are no exterior changes to the color or the texture of the space. The door that I'd like to add is currently a window, so we would replace the window and put a door there. I believe there's some pictures that I placed. The neighboring store, Compass Realty, they also have a metal frame and glass door there as well. So it would look pretty much identical to that.
How is the space accessed now? How do you get into the space now?
So there's a door right
Central
there.
one?
Center door.
Yeah.
Center door.
You're actually putting in an interior division inside
Correct.
this.
Two
This
spaces.
building was originally one building built about 1930, and it's part of a block of buildings put together by a man named Raymond McGee. And this particular building originally was a Bohack store, and then it had a little portion for post office for Bridgehampton back in the 30s or so. And in the 50s, it became a pharmacy, and the owners of the pharmacy decided it was too big, and they subdivided that building as well. And so this is kind of the second subdivision of use, so to speak, for this particular structure there. Just to cut to the chase, as you see, the door would go in on the side there, matches balance with the door on the other side to the other half of the building.
Is that bulkhead, the portion below the glazing, is that brick?
That is a brick facing, I believe. I'm not
Oh, it's a brick face, okay.
There is a grill there.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the,
It actually would mirror the Compasses, I mean, the one next door, I think. Similar.
Is this subdivision of the store going to result in the need for another sign on the front of the building, or are both of these spaces going to be used as the salon?
I'm not sure. Whoever the new tenant is, they would have to apply for
Another sign
a sign.
through the same process, the COA process?
Yeah, of course.
there's
Just so-
already a street sign. This is becoming a new fashion in Bridgehampton. Signs put on the sidewalk, which in theory is not permitted. So, but policing that is another issue. You know, this is basically asking for the change of access and appearance, visual appearance, and that's basically what we're up for here. Basically the metal door is going to match the metal characteristics of the other doors. Is the size going to be the same?
It is. It's I believe it's 42 inches in width, and I don't remember off the top of my head the height, but it's going to be like the same door, same like length, height.
So is that grill that horizontal grill that's in that bulkhead, is that providing air to the basement or something, or ventilation?
The most important parts of the like access to the basement is where I believe that mouse is right now. That is for, I believe, oil for the heat, the
Uh-huh,
furnace. In terms of that grill, where that yellow line is located, I already had some people take a look at that, and they said it's fine.
Usually they're closed up long ago, but
What's going to happen to the area around that door? Right now, it's all glass window.
Uh-huh.
And if you look at the door on the other side in the compass space, basically the door occupies much of the space, and then they've built out, it looks like, the wall around it. Yeah, one down. There we go. So the window will completely disappear. And is there going to be some filling in of the area around the door, much as has been done at the compass space there? How is that going to work?
I'm going to have the glass. It's going to be the glass and door company. They're going to either, if we can save and add some extra glass to that, to that small area, we'll keep it just the way it is without adding too much. For terms of like in terms of like costs, we want to keep that down. So we want to keep it as minimal of a change as possible. So it's most likely going to be glass, unless somehow it's not feasible. But that is the plan. Is just to keep everything glass and just add the metal frame door.
and then you'll still have the brick on either side.
The
of the bed.
Right. That will remain.
The center section door where you have the window over the brick base and then a door directly adjacent.
Okay.
You're agreeing with that, sir? You're agreeing with the comment that was just made?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Would you put I don't know if this room, a transom light over the door, or because the other doors have them?
Or transom up there.
Like an overhead light.
But
No, the
window above the
Yeah,
door.
glass window above the door, the transom.
Is the door
Oh,
full
yes.
height to the
Oh,
frame,
yes.
or is it a shorter door with a fixed piece of
No,
glass above?
there would be. It would look
Like the
just
door
like
next to
okay.
compass.
the
so it has-
neighboring compass door.
But a little bit shorter because you have that dropped header.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So is that your sign, Eddie Arthur?
Yes.
Nice graphics.
So you're subdividing it and renting. You're you're subdividing it and renting some of it.
It'll be partitioned. You know.
And above the glazing, where you see the vertical lines, is that like some type of siding? Yeah, right in there, like a wood paneling?
Looks like texture 111.
Yeah, it's been painted white.
I'm not sure exactly what sort of material, the exact material that is.
What would be great is if your curtain wall company could provide aluminum that's the same color as the window and possibly wrap that and make that 84 lumber special go away.
Okay.
Is this going to have a new number, street number?
I haven't I'm assuming it would. I don't know if it would. You would add a letter or something to it. No one has discussed that with me, but I'm assuming to
I'm sure
separate.
it'll come up down the road probably.
Right.
Yeah. You can see here that there was some of that material on the other side underneath the compass facade as on this side here.
It's got a bunch of those grills across the front,
Here too. That looks,
two, and then the one on the side 3, and then the other one down at the other end.
Those are not gonna be changed, those are gonna stay.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not changing those.
Should we, do we have any more questions? Do we want to ask anything else? or should we move on?
Well, have we satisfied our curiosity?
Yes.
Yes.
Does anyone see any serious problem with this?
No.
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 Do you have to get planning you have to get planning to subdivide, don't you?
Yeah, no, so I've worked with Anthony. Everything is okay on Anthony's side. And then, so I submitted everything, like the site plan, the surveys, just a ton of stuff to the building department. And then they just redirected me back to
Okay.
the historic board to make sure you guys are okay
So
with it
this is a
first.
certificate
This
of
is right.
appropriateness application, so.
Yep.
We should be.
So,
I think in future would have been helpful had and faster for all of us if the window you're working with simply gave us the sketch, the proposed elevation, it's a one pager that they do, proposing this is where the new framework's gonna be and the materials and everything, and it would have been a one-page sketch.
well, these are some of the exterior hinge doors listed.
There.
Yeah, there we are.
Where's the proposed?
It was the different sizes to these sheets, so it gets complicated trying to display them, but
Maybe I flipped through it too fast.
yeah. But absent any, I don't see myself any problem with it. So
see.
if it's not, I will move the adoption, approval of certificate, seconded by Jeff. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's approved.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and explaining things too. Okay. 173 Norris Lane, Bridgehampton. Demolition of the agricultural establishment. This involves removal of barns that have been used. Basically, this would have been a potato storage barn on the property with a little bit of loft structure installed as well. Very common pattern. This is another barn next to it, perpendicular to the one you just saw. This one is built into a bank a little bit. This is a third barn on the property, built probably in the 1950s or so. This is an accessory building on the property. This was that barn built in the 50s, very long barn. This is the front of it with a little hip roof. This is the back of that first barn I showed you, the potato storage barn. Has this humongous fan in, which was needed in order to ventilate when the potatoes were dumped in the barn. They often had moisture, and you had to try to keep the moisture down in order to prevent rot and mold from infecting the potato pile that was stored in the barns. This is that long barn that the 50s, as you can see. little bit of a loft structure again inside this barn. Had the remnants of some construction type material. The family had one of the sons was into building in the Bridgehampton area. This is the outdoor remainder of the farmland that exists there. I'll show you the aerial in just a minute. That's there. Again, the door was off this 1950s or so barn on the rear. This has not been an active farm for probably now 30 years or so. And it was used for other purposes in between up to this particular point. This is the house that was on the property that is also to be demolished. 2 units basically would have probably been agricultural seasonal labor housing for the farming operation that was there. Just another picture from the roadside of this house. A lot of green growing up around, which didn't have much attention to it in the area. These are 2 barns that are looking from the house area. You can see that this one has had dirt piled up against the side of it. That was the one that had the concrete structures inside of it. But that would have been to keep the potatoes cool during its period of storage. So that's the picture of it. I didn't write up a report. It was what I can say about that the family that owned that barn or owned that farm was named Kalish, and 2 brothers, Chester and Constance Kalish, operated that farm, and that farm probably was bought by their father back in the 1930s or so. Let me just get the aerial to kind of remind the and also just to show it with position of Bridgehampton. Okay, this is the remainder of the farm, so to speak, right here that exists. This was that long 50s period barn. These are the 2 agricultural barns that are perpendicularly located there, and this is the house that we looked at, the residential unit here. It's positioned next to the Edgewood Cemetery in Bridgehampton, which has been in business for 130 years as well. The original owner, Anthony Kalish, lived on this corner, and about 5 years ago we reviewed the demolition of the original farmhouse that he had constructed here on this corner. And so this would have been his farming operation, and then the farming center for his sons. The sons farmed both in Bridgehampton and in East Hampton, but this would have been their central business area for what they were doing in East Hampton.
What was the heyday of these barns, like post World War II or in the 20s?
Let's see, did I make notes of, I don't think I made notes of that, but if you look at, see if I can look at the 1938 aerial, you will see at least one barn, I believe, on a 1938 aerial. Let's see, Bridgehampton East. Now if I can figure out this map. Okay. Here's Bridgehampton Center, Montauk Highway, and this is Norris Lane leading off of Montauk Highway. Anybody who's familiar knows that this is the Bridgehampton School, which is a significant building on Montauk Highway. So, and this would be the farm parcel here. This white and this gray area. And if you look closely, blow up. Let's see, I don't want to lose the focus here. What did I lose? Yeah. This looks like a barn structure, very difficult to visualize with the resolution that's on this picture. So that might have been the original barn, one of the original barns, and then subsequent to that, the other barns would have been constructed. And this would have been the farmhouse location of the father originally. One can see, if one really zooms out, the loss of all. There's no agricultural land here left. This little parcel was recently bought for about, I think, $3 million.
This is on sale at the moment. This is on sale. It's 2.8 million, 2.8 acres. And they haven't got an offer yet. So for me, I'm not sure why they should be allowed to demolish potato barns.
Well, it's been sold, and a house is scheduled to be erected there. They were before the Architectural Planning Board this morning at 11 o'clock with the plans.
Okay.
So
What do I know?
that seals the fate of this. The family basically faces what a lot of agricultural families did: disappearing land. The farmer brothers, their sons, one became a builder. I forget what the other sons did, but for a while they operated a feed store on the old GLF property that existed in the community. It's for anybody who knows Bridgehampton, there's a place called Martyr's Nursery, and across the street from which Martyr's Nursery, across the street was the Kalish business for selling pet foods, garden seeds, and equipment.
Agway.
Yeah, well, yeah, GLF became Agway. I'm dating myself because they changed the name to Agway in the 1970s, so, but I always went to the GLF building. In any case, yeah, and now Martyr's has purchased the Country Gardens garden and feed store that
I
was
think
there.
they got 25 million. I think they got 25 million for the property, but that's Bridgehampton gossip, so I could be wrong about it.
Yeah,
Martyrs is using it for their offices. It's not open to the public anymore. They just have offices in it. So.
So the buildings are really not good for any adaptive reuse. Some old potato houses in Bridgehampton are used. There's one on Lumber Lane, which Martha and I would be both familiar with. That's partial residence as well as storage for artworks. It's climate controlled. It's been renovated for that purpose. There are a couple of other potato houses that have been renovated for different purposes. And AKRF did propose, AKRF is our shorthand for the survey of historic resources, town historic resources, that was done in 2014. But one of the things that they proposed was perhaps a resource district of potato houses, because they're so unique to the kind of agricultural economy that existed out here. But since 2014, some have just disappeared into other forms, and probably could not put together a project like that anymore.
Someone told me that the temperature in those buildings, even though they're above ground because they're banked with the soil against them, that they would, without any heat, would maintain about a 55-degree temperature, and it'd keep the potatoes apparently from freezing. And I was surprised that, it gets pretty cold here, that would maintain that type of temperature.
I
Yes,
did my
they do.
master's thesis on was a winery in the North Fork, but I used a potato barn structure, and I did research and found out the exact same thing. Keeps them to 55, so they don't freeze, and but I can't imagine when it's adaptively reused if it's not clammy in there.
The rest of
And just to confirm everything, my father had 3 potato barns for his farm, and that's the way they work. Temperature is evenly kept, even though it may drop to 0 degrees out, and, even with a wind blowing.
I noticed a few of those have modest chimneys, typically at the ends of them. They're like square chimneys, and I was curious about, I haven't been in any of them, so I don't know what, but I suppose some of them may have had auxiliary heat if they had to, for drying out.
Yeah, I can tell you that in the potato barns, another aspect of them is that in the springtime, when in the olden days, when shipments of seed potatoes would be shipped in from Maine or other places, and they'd come into Agway on the train, and they'd be taken off the train. They would be taken to the potato barns, and then before the era of mechanical potato cutting of the seed potatoes, you would have to do it by hand, and the cutters of seed would be sitting in the barn, and often there would be a stove that would be there to provide some heat for the workers at that point in time. I don't know if that's the function of the ones that you've seen, but I do know that heat use was sometimes required.
There were such modest chimneys, they didn't seem like they would function to heat the whole building as big as those buildings are. And the chimneys I just noticed were at one end or the other, and so
Which
that's
would make
probably
sense.
exactly what they're for.
So as much as I bemoan the loss of familiar objects in farming and agriculture and for Champton, I myself don't see any rationale for objecting to the demolition application that's here. Is there other thoughts or feelings on this?
You don't see any adaptive reuse, as you mentioned. There's wouldn't be.
Yes, and some of the barn structures are themselves, the way they've been pasted together, is not necessarily going to lend itself to any kind of renovated use. So, okay, I will
Okay.
make the response. By the way, Susan, are you going to make the response on
Yes,
228?
yeah.
Okay, all right.
And I just saw that was 2.69 acres. I looked it up, so that's a large, with that corner lot that your house is, I mean, your barns are on, that's the.
Okay. We had an emergency demolition request come by this afternoon. I don't know if everyone got a chance to become aware of it. And let me see if I can. Showed up about 4 o'clock
When the building fell down.
and involves some.
I saw it, but I thought it was for next month, so I didn't
I
come.
was glad to see all the plywood there. Hopefully
This
there's
is
nobody.
in Riverside.
Window air conditioner was sticking through the plywood.
Jeez.
But it's like a 3-story building. You can see it
They have
before it fell down.
Yeah.
All the garage doors, then these
Yeah,
windows.
this is
windows
not the,
So it's
get
quite
the other
substantial.
application.
It's half gone
Yeah.
anyway.
I wonder what
So-
caused it
It's
to
on halfway
collapse.
on its way to
I mean, you don't hear about that every day.
I guess it got stuck.
You know, a fire or something, yeah.
Is there that?
Mattress collapsed.
No,
6 a.m.
gravity
in the morning.
intervened.
Down. And hopefully they weren't a bunch of.
So this building collapsed
Living-
Friday in Riverside on Old Quag Road.
Was anyone hurt?
And
Was anyone hurt?
no one was hurt. It was an abandoned building, neglected for many years. I'll just show you some aerial pictures in a moment to illustrate it. All the paperwork wasn't put together, packaged in time. You know, who's going to do an engineering report on a demolition? That's already, but anyway, if everybody is in agreement, we can waive any of the other requirements just to say, there's no need to go ahead with it. This was a building recessed behind some other houses close by on the property there. And if we look at the location here, just to give a picture. And let me go back to 2008 for a moment. 2008, you can already, this is the building right here. You can see there are already tarps on the roof. And if you continue, you see 2013, the tarps are still on the roof. Go a little bit further, 2016, tarps are still on the roof, and the roof is intact, or so to speak. And 2018, it's okay, but in 2020, oh, the roof, I've got my years wrong. 2021, you begin to see the roof disappearing. 2022, see the building has been deteriorating considerably, and apparently nobody really noticed very much about it at the time. And of course, the last pictures taken, aerial pictures, were taken April 2024. As you can see, it was getting worse, and it was just sitting there ripe for disappearance. And if we, just to give you an idea what it looked like in 2003, let me see if I can get a picture up here from the town's that was the building in 2003. So it was used for trucking business. It had apartment on the ground floor and 2 apartments on the second level of this building located there. But that was obviously a long time ago. So
Demolition by neglect?
demolition by neglect
Yes.
story.
By several years
certainly.
over several owners.
Through several owners, yes. I'm not sure what the fate of the property is going to be here. But the question was just removing the debris, getting it out of the way, and as soon as possible. And
Secure
that's why
the site.
it was presented today to, do we have any objection?
No.
No objection? Okay, fine. All right. So, 14 Pleasant Avenue, West Hampton, we didn't have a problem. There we, Stephanie, that was what?
This is the small house that we're looking at renovations that were already partially completed, and some of them were underway. The house didn't appear to have any historic value whatsoever, and so we agreed to pass on review.
Okay.
And I was billing myself.
So, 68 Shore Road, Hampton Bays. I sent a brief report around about this. This was work was being done on the property, and without proper permit, a stop work order was issued. And as you can see, the house was basically plywood over, and this is in an area that was subdivided in 1915, and the house has just barely meets the 1940 requirement for an AYB to be reviewed here. I did not see it on a 1954 aerial, so I thought maybe it's later. I didn't see any value of the house architecturally or otherwise. The house, when it was built in an economic mode. Doesn't have much, certainly, structure to it. And what the work was to expand the footprint of the house, and that's when the work was stopped last October. And so this is an application to allow a building permit to allow the work to go forward. Is there any problem with this?
Nope.
Okay. I will send a response. This is in a private development. I'll tell you, the potholes in the road, it's a private road. When I first drove down it, I was saying, how could the town have a road like this? Well, it turns out it was a private road, not a public one. 33 Newtown Road. I didn't write a report on this, but I did visit the site. And this is a located next to, basically off the Shinnecock Canal on the west bank. I'll just zoom out a little bit here so you can get an idea. This is the Shinnecock Canal. This is the railroad bridge that goes over the Shinnecock Canal. And this is the property that we're talking about. The property data in the GIS system had an affidavit from the family from the 1990s or so, indicating that it had been basically in the same family for a long period of time, multiple generations. It was built, a newspaper article reports it was built for the newly married couple of Arthur Langsdorff and his wife Edibel Hubbard. The Hubbards owned a lot of the property where you see the boatyards on the canal. That was Hubbard land, so to speak. And when Langsdorff, who was from Lindenhurst, grocery salesman, World War I vet, married, the newspaper said the newly married couple returning from their honeymoon to their newly built house on New Light Lane. So it's 1924. The house itself is reminiscent of the famous prairie style we have been discussing today. Let me see if I have the picture here that I took when I saw it. That's the house there. The house is, the front porch is settling, so they want to put a new foundation under the porch, deconstruct the porch, put a new foundation for the porch in, new construction for an enclosed porch on the top, and then as well put on a deck on top of the flat area here. That's just one part of the building plan. The other part is to build a new garage on the property. By the way, just let me, since I went, this is Arthur Langdorff. This is from the Southampton Press. It was a profile of town of Southampton vets, and this was done November 22nd, 1984, and that was the picture in the Southampton Press along with the profile of the story. And he died on December 30th, very shortly thereafter. So, but anyway, very active. He helped organize the American Legion Hall in Hampton Bays, I think. So it's on Ponquag Avenue there. So anyway, just a pictorial aside there. The application, which has good pictures, by the way. Yeah, here's the application to indicate what they want to do with the front of the building, replace the porch, put on a deck with an access door on the front. This is a garage in the back. It's a very deep property that they want to install. There are some of their pictures of the house as well. They're putting in a deck on the back with a swimming pool in back of the house as part of this overall construction project. That's the front door of the house. So 33. The owner says, that's the owner here, says his wife loves the house. It had been a rental, and they had rented it prior to their purchasing it. basement with some interesting remnants of structural stabilization. That's the back where the swimming pool will be put, and a garage on the property. And Newtown Lane is where the telephone pole is there. The house has been, the windows have been redone on the house. It's not a house with too much in place, but there is some originality to parts of the house. So I didn't, it's not in AKRF, not in the Hampton Bays Historic Profiles section that deals with the canal area structures. And so I, myself didn't see any reason to object. The neighborhood, as you saw from the overheads aerials, it's not a neighborhood that is going to have any capacity to be called a historic district in any fashion. In fact, if you look at the area, it's got certainly all the remnants of boat, and it looks like it's got a junk boat yard across the way. Can I get this stabilized here? So this is nothing of a historic neighborhood in place. So my opinion is not to object. Any other comments? With that, I'll send back a report to the building department. And we passed on Baycrest Avenue, and Stephanie, do you remember?
Yeah. This one.
We had reviewed this one before in 2019.
Yep.
And passed on it. It has certificate of compliances for additions in 1972, 82, 85, 90, and 2019. So it's really hard to figure out what the original house looked like or what it was. So basically there's no historic fabric left on the outside.
Nope.
It's not in the AKRF. It's not in the East Quogue Hamlet Heritage Area Report. And there's really nothing historic left of it. Asphalt roofing, vinyl siding, all replacement windows and doors. So we didn't see any reason to go any further with the review.
Okay. And I think, Stephanie, you called my attention. I agreed that 6 Sheridan Road, that basically this was a kitchen rearrangement, and that it didn't deserve any kind of.
Yeah, it was for an existing kitchen, and then they put an addition on with a new kitchen, and so the house has 2 kitchens, and that's what we were, approving is essentially the older kitchen which remains in place.
Okay.
Apparently, they're maintaining 2 kitchens there, I think, for kosher, non-kosher, or something or other.
You mentioned somebody having allergies or really.
Yeah, something.
I mean,
like
they're
that.
the medical.
Yeah. But there was no change to the house. There was no change at all proposed, so it didn't seem to warrant review.
Okay, so we covered that. We had 2 other certificates of appropriateness, 2200 Montauk Highway, which is just basically a revisiting of the application from our last month's meeting, in which question was brick
Yes.
columns.
Yes, what did the monument sign gonna look like? And this is what they sent us.
And it was resubmitted with a revised simulation of the picture. What they said is they sent the wrong picture. They had already decided to have 4-inch width aluminum posts and not brick columns for the sign, and that was what was recirculated. And so, from my point of view, they solved the problem that we raised at the last meeting. And I would move the certificate of appropriateness again with the aluminum post design that they did submit. Just for the record, so we have it. Moved and seconded by Vicky. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Thank you for pointing that out. I hadn't had a chance to figure out what was different between those two.
Temporary.
I looked at the larger diagram. Both looked the same, but it was post.
Why did
Gotcha.
we object to the brick?
The texture of the brick was different than the texture of the brick on the building itself.
It was more of a clarification request rather than an objection.
So now they've
But
gone
but
to
they-
But
aluminium.
now there is no more
There's
brick
no
on the
brick.
sign.
Right,
Brick.
they're
It's a
saying that
Sign
was,
that
they
looks
had,
like
they,
it could be pulled out at will.
Yeah,
so
there's
they're
buildings
saying,
rented
they're saying
again.
they submitted the wrong
a
rendering.
sign that doesn't match at all. No. Is that, do we not object to this? It sits right in the front of the building.
It looks very temporary.
What's that?
It looks temporary to me. Like this building for rent.
It looks cheap.
It is a building permit.
Well, it's the dime, let me bring up the,
So you have
It's
multiple
across from the Farrell.
Yeah,
It's
I'll,
going to be a multi-tenant.
I understand that. It's just that the building sort of has a dignity that sign
Yeah.
doesn't.
It looks temporary.
I mean, it's not. I'm not saying it's the greatest example of architecture in the world. It's just not that offensive.
It's just part of the fabric of the
Yeah.
community, and that sign isn't.
yeah, this is the redesigned sign with the aluminum post underneath it for support rather than the,
There's nothing aluminum on the building though, at all.
Pardon?
I mean, it doesn't match anything about the building now. I mean, even if it were painted white, at least it would match the columns and the doors. But to put in aluminum,
Well, is there
Well, I
a
think it would
color,
be
is
white.
there a
I
color
think it-
coded? It's most likely a powder coated or
I'm-
painted finish, but that
That's-
would be white.
Thank you.
this is the old picture. What happened to my new picture?
That's my friend's law firm. They are
It's
gonna
probably
get more
stuck in
tenants,
my
definitely.
email box here.
Doesn't leave much room for one more.
Well, Egan and Golden is just on the top third. I think that there's definitely more offices up there.
Then they're gonna have to eventually change that sign because it's not gonna fit
Yes. Well,
the way they have it laid out.
it's going to say offices for rent.
It's rendered as white.
Answer the question?
Yes, that answers the question. Thank you. Still don't like it.
Maybe they could plant something at the
That
base.
would be a good suggestion. Maybe they could
Provide
hide
some
it with
sort
some planting. They've got all that cats
Catmint?
Yeah.
Mhm.
running
The
around.
pet- mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. 2209 Montauk Highway, certificate of appropriateness for umbrellas. I found the application a little uninformative. Um,
And
However,
I saw the upside down umbrellas, and that's what I thought they were proposing, what, like hanging them upside down in color.
well,
I'm not,
that's why I say it was a little bit uninformative.
yeah.
Let me,
I mean, if you believe that they just want the colored ones at Cinderella versus the upside down ones, then
The
I
picture
trust your-
that they showed illustrated, the umbrellas are right side up, not upside down.
I guess they're right there.
these
Right.
are
Excuse
the
me, right side up.
umbrellas currently in place.
Yeah.
They want to replace them with
I didn't
Colored
understand what that was.
umbrellas.
It's-
That'll be nice.
Yeah, well, these are suspended from something.
Yeah, those
Nice
weren't
to have
upside down,
Regular
so they were
umbrellas,
living.
like, at a picnic table, so my guess is they're gonna put some wire suspension thing.
So they want to make it look like.
This is looking
Maybe
from
that's
the
what they wanna
parking
make
lot.
it look like.
A lot of the outdoor
That's what I
patio
interpreted it.
furniture, dining area is masked by seasonal containerized landscape items.
Are they staying that size? Those are the umbrellas, yes?
Those are the umbrellas
But in color.
in color.
I'm okay with that. That's
Yes.
an upside down. That's sort
Yeah,
of
that
threw me
picture
for a
is-
loop.
This is, yeah, this is not, I mean, I understood it was
Yeah.
gonna be more like this.
Sort
With
of
some
That's like a-
wires and
it's like a-
suspended
almost like a-
umbrellas and.
An
Well,
installation.
as I
A
said,
pergola overview
Yeah.
of umbrellas.
Well,
the
that's
application
what I
was a
interpreted
little
it.
uninformative.
They have to put in posts and things.
The dangers of Pinterest imagery.
Came from head office, no doubt.
Just for those who may not have seen it, the application, I'll just pull it up here.
They don't have, they'd have to build a whole structure to do
Yeah.
that picture.
Yes,
Put in a bunch of posts and
Yeah.
things so that they could string the cables back and forth.
Yeah. And there
Yeah.
isn't a lot of room. There's literally the room for those three umbrellas.
Right.
So that was the application's demonstration of colorful umbrellas.
It's
You know,
like apples and
I don't
oranges.
even know
Yes.
where this location is in the world, so, but, you know. But obviously, it's not the kind of umbrellas that they're talking about. The only thing that I
It's only one
had
door.
concern about, which in the report I sent around, with the recommendation that that the umbrellas have a muted color to them and not a shiny reflective color as you might find with a vinyl umbrella.
So more of a matte
Yeah.
finish.
like a
or-
color
More of a matte
umbrella.
finish, and most umbrellas, outdoor umbrellas, are that way. But the cheapest form,
fabric rather than vinyl.
yeah, the cheapest form is the
They're
vinyl,
cotton
which is
now. They're matte
The
now.
canvas, I think.
They are matte
matte
now.
finish. Yeah, yeah. So with that was not in the application, but I would propose that we approve it with that modification, that they not be shiny, but matte colored umbrellas. So
Yep.
I'll move the adoption and approval. Okay, seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay, fine. Okay.
I drive by and see the little umbrellas. No, tease.
A couple of pieces of business, 520 Montauk Highway, we deemed
that's what they wanted to do.
we deemed the application inappropriate in terms of soliciting an engineering report. I sent around a letter I got yesterday. I don't know if everybody got a chance to look at it. I had some problems with the letter because it was asking for a waiver, which could be considered, but they asked for the waiver on the basis of the house should not have been built there in the first place.
Yeah.
I found that odd and unconnected to the question. I didn't get a chance to speak to our liaison in the attorney's office, but I find that an inadequate request. And if it was for economic reasons or prior assessments that might be found in the property record, I would find something like that to be more of a justification. But what I would ask, and I don't want to hamper unnecessarily the Peconic Land Trust here, but if the board is willing to delegate to myself after I talk to the town attorney's office the ability to deem a request, some kind of request that's legitimate for an engineering report, to allow it to be waived so that the application can be dealt with at the next meeting. The application for demolition could be dealt with at the next meeting. Is that something that
Sorry, is this the house that you wanted to move? Is this the house that they wanted to move?
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
But this would only be to demolish it, not to move it.
Well, there's at the last meeting, the application was deemed incomplete for review. We got a request yesterday to waive the engineering structural report, which would ordinarily be a completion.
Yes.
And I was, a little nervous about the way in which that request was offered.
The guy.
And
justified it by saying it
what
never should
I
have
would
been
like
built
to
there.
do is to just
100
be
years
able
ago.
to say between now and the next meeting that if they submit a legitimate request to waive it, that I be allowed to waive it so that we can deal with the application for demolition at our July meeting. Does that
Yeah.
yeah.
And, I will say, it's just one reason, of course, we could request that of every demolition application, but we don't, just because, we try to, extend whatever courtesy we can. But when it comes to like known historic resources, then we request it, because if we're going to recommend that it be moved, you need to, I like to know ahead of time. I mean, if an engineer thinks, it's, the building still has physical integrity, that it can be moved. But that being said, yes, go ahead and
Well, if that's agreement, then
move on. That's a helpful piece of
okay.
information to
Right.
have, but in this case, please, proceed how you were
right.
going to.
And just as just another little piece, I had a phone call from the Peconic Land Trust on Friday afternoon, and looking for some information, looking for perhaps angles and so on. And they have been interacting with the party who owns the location to which it would be relocated, setting out some conditions which, people will have to sift through yet. So there is some discussion going on, and a lot more needs to be worked out. One of the parties to this will be Dave Wilcox, who is on vacation this week. he's been on vacation each week of our last 3 months' meetings.
Good
So,
job.
we will have
Hey,
ample ammunition to deal with Dave when he comes back. But in any case, yes, there's a lot more to take place, and there might be a hint of some progress or working out if the conditions that are trying to be imposed, are somewhat acceptable or modified by parties involved. Anyway, that's 5:20. The Stony Brook Southampton Windmill nomination awaits more questions about whether or not the appropriate legislation has been fulfilled or not, and awaits also probably the arrival of a brand new president of Stony Brook University, who resigned 2 weeks ago to take up the presidency of Yale University, from which he graduated.
that's fair.
So,
That's okay.
and the president of
Yeah.
Yale, of course, had their own problems. Okay, 126 South Country Road.
Yay. The property owners have been very patient. They would very much, I think, like to landmark their house. Ed has been doing quite a bit of very in-depth research to obtain a little bit more information, particularly about the early ownership of the house and when it may have been constructed. That information has now been provided. I've incorporated it into the report that I circulated this afternoon. I think the bottom line for the information that we've just received is that the house it appears pretty clearly present in 1838. We can't really carry it back any much further than that. It looks like it was first owned by members of the Rayner family, Seller Rayner and his wife Millicent Rayner. They had 2 children, one of whom married James Tuttle, who is perhaps that's the beginning of the Tuttle ownership of the house. It appears that the house probably was constructed in the 1800s rather than the 1700s. Looks like perhaps maybe around 1830. And when James Tuttle married into the Rayner family and married Millicent Rayner, that began the beginning of the Tuttle family ownership. James Tuttle was a farmer, and he was also the first postmaster of Spionk when Spionk first got its post office. Interestingly enough, the house was also the location of the first Remsenburg post office after this portion of what was Spionk became named Remsenburg. From there, the house appeared to have passed down through the Tuttle line to eventually to Harold Rayner Tuttle. And actually, James Tuttle married a second time after his first wife Millicent died. He married a Carolyn Cameron, who became Mrs. Carolyn Tuttle, and she operated a boarding house in the property for many years. Harold Tuttle eventually ended up renovating the house. And appears to have also lived in the house for a period of time. So that information replaced a lot of the early ownership information that we had previously theorized for the most part based on family relationships rather than census records and other records that Ed was able to dig up. So I still have to go through the attachments to our report, make sure that we have all the current attachments in there, and delete some of the ones that no longer appear to pertain to the history of this house. So that still has to be done. But I would like to move forward the resolution tonight to landmark this house. And I think I circulated a copy of the resolution for this. And I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but basically we feel that it meets 4 criteria for consideration as a town landmark. Because it possesses special character or historic or aesthetic interest, of value as part of the cultural, political, economic, and social history, due to its long association with the Tuttle family, whose members resided in Remsenburg-Spionk hamlet for over 2 centuries, and whose family name is now associated with 2 private cemeteries and a street. Its former use as a boarding house during the boarding house era of our local history, and is the site of the first post office established in Remsenburg following the renaming of the southern portion of Spionk in 1895. It's also identified with historic personages or the site of a historic event or the town, due to its association with James Tuttle, who was the first postmaster of Spionk. It embodies its distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type, due to its saltbox form of the original volume, and because of its unique location or singular physical characteristic represents an established and familiar visual feature of the neighborhood, due to its prominent and highly visible location in the midst of other properties constructed for and used by related Tuttle family members, including the adjoining Academy building, which is already a town landmark. Therefore, I recommend that we resolve to recommend designation to the town board. And I think, Ed, you had a little bit of additional information you wanted to add to this.
Well, just for B, where it says, due to its association with James Tuttle, the first postmaster of Spionk, to indicate and site of the first post office for Spionk. He was the first postmaster, but also it was in his house, and it was a historic event for Spionk.
And the first post office at Remsenburg, too.
And, well,
Both, yeah.
Remsenburg, yeah, that's a case of hijacked identity, I think. But in any case, you can say that, too.
Was there anything else you wanted to add to this, Ed?
No, I think you captured it. And by the way, real compliment to you for, I think I sent this, you got it Monday morning.
I noticed it came over at like 2:34 in the morning. Ed?
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And redoing the narrative and framing it so well, really is a perfect job.
Thank you. It's been a long labor of Bill and myself, and a lot of patience on the part of the homeowners. And I'm very happy that we can move this forward tonight.
This was an impressive read.
Yeah.
It was fun to read it today, and all of the site maps and stuff are cool.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Thank you.
So we should have a formal motion for this resolution.
Yep.
Moved by Martha, seconded by Jeff. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Resolution is adopted, and it's ready to be sent off when the appendices are
Yes.
finished.
Yes, which I am hopeful of accomplishing in the next couple of days. Get it cleaned up, and I will also clean this up and put it on letterhead and add the names, etc.
Okay, very good.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
11 Walnut Avenue is a quiet project at the moment.
Yep.
And 149 South Country Road, we've not heard anything about easement.
No, I haven't heard anything from either the homeowner or CPF about the status of the easement for that.
Oh, okay. The North Sea Schoolhouse application seems to be for a Landmarks Award. Didn't get its act together in time, and it looks like that wait till next year event. Town-owned cemeteries, this was a subject matter that was just presented by Julie Green, the town historian, with respect to could they be made into a historic district of some kind, a thematic historic district. I've not been able to do any kind of checking and research on it, and so I will make a bad pun. I think it's a dead issue for the moment.
Should I remove it from the agenda? Or leave it as a reminder?
Well, I think remove it, and if
So it would be a great one.
It'll
when the
come back
next
to life
issue
at
comes
some
up with
point.
respect to a town cemetery, we might take it up. But
Rises
Bring it
from the
back to
dead, we'll
life.
deal with it.
The State and National Register of Historic Places nominations, I think, I think the town could have more done in this dimension, but everything takes energy, attention, research, and the resources for that we get from the town are lacking, I think, and so it just has to be taken slowly. I will be bringing this up as one of the elements of a discussion with the town supervisor, just as a point. We're scheduled to meet next Tuesday, and yesterday I got an email that scheduling change, cancel the meeting, and they'll wait till next week to try and reschedule the meeting to discuss Landmarks Board priorities and place in the scheme of things in Southampton town. So that's just to make you aware that there is some possible advocacy for improving the conditions under which we work. Stony Brook Southampton buildings, well, that's associated with the Stony Brook Southampton windmill issues. Certified local government, which is we've had some activity with associated with taking courses or signing up for educational sessions.
Yep.
We all were alerted, I think, by David to report if we do take any webinars or other type of education to answer the requirement for a certified local government board to have certain education continuing for the board. So it's important just to keep track of you get involved in something along that line. And we will be getting some notices circulated by either Vicki, you get it from SHPO.
Yeah, David and I both get them, yeah.
Yeah,
But David
and
circulates them faster than I can, so it's good. As long as everybody gets them. There's no requirement for a specific number. It's not like taking CEs for a license, But it's strongly encouraged that we all take as much as we can, when it's feasible for you to do so. Just make a record, because not certificates are not necessarily issued. So you need to make a note in your diary. I attended such and such a class, and just let us know.
Yeah, Christine, I think, is keeping track too.
But we have to let her know.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Right.
But she can keep track as long as we let her know.
Yes, she's going to do that.
let me check on the status of our new board members. Did you get your email operating?
I've been going back and forth with the IT department, so I actually have to come into the town and do it. It's not been working for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trying to think of Joe Furlow.
Yeah, Joe Furlong, yep.
He's generally, when we run into a roadblock for access, he's the person to
Okay.
helps us.
I also spoke to somebody named Jude Pizzo, but He might have been
I think
transferred.
I think that's
Joe's a
amendment.
furlong.
Jude helps
Joe-
me.
Yeah, Jude is who I've been talking to.
Jude is very helpful,
Yeah,
I spoke
but I think he said he was going on to some other job,
okay.
and that Joe Furlong was going to take his job.
Oh, okay. I was just planning on coming in on Friday because Fridays I'm in Southampton. Usually I'm in East Hampton all week, so this Friday I was gonna just come in and
I'd suggest you make sure someone's gonna be
Yeah.
there and do it on
Okay.
a Friday
Appointment with-
morning, not a Friday
on the
afternoon.
board. Okay.
Because you have an email address, set up, and I've been sending things to it, and I wouldn't have done that. I would have included your
Yeah.
other one if I'd known,
Yeah.
so. Now I know.
Thank you.
We know, so.
When I'm on it, I'll email everyone to confirm.
All right. So until then, right,
Yeah.
because it's better that you get the information
Yes.
one way or another than,
Yeah.
and you haven't been getting.
Yeah. I get into the portal, so I have access to the portal, but I don't have the email communication. I was getting emails to my personal email, and then I haven't really gotten many of those. So I'll email everyone once I'm in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other question, last meeting, you said you were having questions of access to the GIS system for the town.
I need that. I looked at that thing that Christine put together, and I don't know, maybe I was doing it on a work day, and I was kind of in a hurry, and I just didn't get it. I just
Well,
is,
You do you have an account for the GIS
No.
access? Okay,
Jude
but you
gave
have to
me
you have to sign up for
Jude
one.
gave you one?
An
And-
ID and a password.
Right, you get an ID and a password that
Okay.
goes to get access
So
to.
start with Jude
Jude did it for me.
or Joe or whoever
Yeah.
answers the phone in IT.
But Larry, you said, I
Well,
think,
I had trouble getting in, but we figured it out
okay,
today. I was gonna come in on Thursday to talk to Jude, and then I fooled around with it and figured out how to get in okay, so I'm okay now.
okay, well, it's a uphill learning curve when you get involved with it, so.
I don't get there.
Paradise does not come easily. Any other
Ridiculous security.
business for us to think about that anybody wants to bring up?
I'd like to know how to get into where, when you guys are moving around on these maps, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. I'd like to know if there's a way I can, when I'm sitting looking at something, if I can pull up some aerials to be able to look at sites and stuff.
That's all on the GIS, and in fact, remember a while ago, I think it was a couple of years ago, maybe it was pre-pandemic, we were promised for the group to have a session on how to use the GIS, exploit the GIS resources.
Yeah.
I remember
You know,
that.
and I think that's what he's referring to. Maybe we can
Yeah.
make that on our
I
list.
would like
of
that.
things to-
Okay, well,
Great.
we can try to press that button again, and that's something to,
That's vital. to what we're
when
doing.
Dave comes back, I'll ask him if he can set up something to
Thank you.
provide a common class for, so that's something to be look forward to. Okay. So, I don't think I have anything else, and it's actually 8:47, which is
Record. Good
close
job.
to it, but
Good job.
anyway, if there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.